welcome to today's lecture. So, in today's lecture, we will be looking at principles of HCI. So, today we will also try to understand the purpose of the user interface design. So, to work with UI or user interface means finding ways to develop interface that allows the user to have a good experience. Now, the UI which we are designing, we have to take in consideration that it cannot be confusing or it cannot add any kind of a mental stress on the user when they are performing the interaction, but it should allow for a fluid movement so that the navigation that the user is conducting is smooth and it is error free and it is giving a positive experience to the user. So the role of the designer here becomes very important to ensure that any external assistance is not required by the user. So now there are certain heuristics, or we can say certain principles that have been developed by Jacob Nielsen, and these were developed in 1990s, and that time the interfaces used to be quite different from what we have today. However, they are still very useful and they have also undergone several changes as per today's needs. And these are not really principles that are followed to a T, but they act as a guide and as a rule of thumb that the designers can refer to. So, we will be broadly looking at these heuristics in today's class. So, the first one, which is the visibility of system status. Now, here the designer needs to ensure that at all times the user is in touch or he's able to see that what is the system status. So, for example, when we are, say, entering our email address, we want to enter our email portal and we enter our email and password and then we press login. And if the login button remains the way it was, then we will not be sure whether our request has been entered or not. So now, rather than this, if the button changed its color or it became gray or the message from login changed to say wait or logging in, and there is some kind of a graphics which is indicating that some at the back end some motion is happening and a request has been considered, so that will give the user a very clear indication that now they can just sit and wait while the system takes in their request and they open up the next page. So similarly, in many other of these interactions, we see that whether it is changing the page or selecting some kind of menu or entering somewhere, so the system should keep on giving the feedback to the user so that user is constantly knowing that where they are in terms of this interaction with the digital system. So in order to achieve this visibility of the system status so that the user is not in a state of confusion and the real time activity is being communicated to the user, so there are certain things that the designer can take care of. So one of them is that to communicate clearly to the user what the system state is, so that the system is not taking any action without the user's information. So users should know, because there can be some very classified information or some personal information that the user is trying to access. So system should not work without the user's input. The second is that the system should be able to give quick feedback to the user, and real time is better, as immediately as possible it is better. And when this happens, that when the user is able to achieve what they set out to do, then this also develops their trust in the system, and then the user becomes a lifelong user of this particular application or the system that they are trying to use. The second here is match between the system and the real world. Now the system, it's imperative, should speak in the language that the user speaks or the world speaks. So now the user is not only using, for example, our application, but they're using several other applications on various platforms. So now the nuances or the way the other systems are interacting or communicating with the user, so user over time gets accustomed and gets used to some of the languages that are being spoken to the user by the system. So if our application or our particular system is speaking in a totally different language, then the user is left perturbed, and the user then would need external assistance, which we are trying the user not to seek out for. So in that case, it becomes that the design language as well as the literal language that we are using, it matches with the real world, and it is not something that the user ends up struggling with. So in order to do this, there are certain things that the designer can keep in mind. So we can do this by not assuming that the user understands what is our understanding. So we have to understand the user's perspective, and for this, the user research becomes a very integral tool that the designer can use. So this will help us uncover the different terminologies that the user is familiar with, so that we can also incorporate the same in our system. The next is user control and freedom. So we all as human beings like to have our control and freedom in certain situations. And when it comes to digital platform, this requirement is still there. Now, as humans, we tend to make a lot of mistakes, or just slips unintentionally sometimes. So when the user is able to undo or take care of these mistakes, then the user gets a feel of this control, that they can avoid mistakes in case they make it in the future as well. So now these mistakes could be because of several reasons, like fatigue or motor control issues. So now we have, say, a feature of Control Z, which allows us to undo our action. So if we make a mistake, a simple Control Z takes us back to the previous state, and then we can choose the next appropriate action, or the action that we ideally had intended to make but made something else by mistake. Similarly, when we are using our email, for example, and we intend to attach some attachment, a file, but we forget to attach it and send the email across, then it puts us in a very sorry state, because then we have to resend another mail. So when the system prompts us, do you want to attach, because it reads in the subject that we are attaching some document, then that prompts us to attach and then send the mail and then save our face in this whole process. So this becomes very imperative, and for this, steps like undo or redo become very important to be integrated in the system. And there has to be a clear way in which the user can exit out of the system. So many a times, for example, when we are making any online purchase and we have gone through all the steps and we have entered our card details, etc., and then in the next page we realize we entered some incorrect detail. So if the system allows us to cancel and go back, so it makes it a good experience, pleasant experience. But if we are not able to do it and it takes us all the way through, then we know instinctively that this process is going to go on several steps, and in the end it will show us an error message. So the cancel button also allows us to terminate the process there and save our time and redo the previous step with the correct information. And also, in order to allow the user to use these features like redo, undo, cancel, they have to also be very clearly indicated so that the user is able to spot them instantly and is not looking for these control buttons so that he may undo his mistake. The next point here is the consistency and standard. So now we don't want the user to keep on wondering that whether different words, situations, or actions mean the same thing or do they mean different things. So because we have already discussed that how the user is spending time on other platforms as well, and ours is not the only platform they are spending time on. So we have to maintain the consistency with the standards that are already set in this particular domain, so that the user is not looking for information that he's not familiar with. So, for example, the word cancel is quite universal. It's accepted universally by many different platforms, and cancel means that once we cancel it, we are going back to the previous stage. If we use some other word rather than cancel, which the user is not familiar with, then they will not know what to do in this situation. So, in order for the user not to self doubt or mistrust the platform, so we have to ensure that we are consistent and the standards are in place. So, this also helps improve the learnability, which is both internal and external. So, learnability becomes very important because we are also allowing the user to learn how our system works, but not in a way that he has to learn it afresh, or this is the only platform where they will have to work or interact in a certain manner, and when they go back to other platforms, then they will go the standard way. So now here the internal consistency is that when we have a single product or a family of products, so the whole design language is consistent throughout these family of products. And the external consistency is that whatever are the industry set rules or standards, we must follow those for the user's benefit. The next point here is the error prevention. So, like I discussed in the last slide as well, that error is something that we don't want in the first place to take place. So, once error has happened, we have to take some remedial measures to correct it. So, the first step, without the need to put any remedial measures, the first and foremost effort should be to not at all have any kind of error in our system. Still, if we do end up getting an error, then the error has to be communicated in such a way that it is not making the user feel incompetent or unintelligent, and this error message should be designed carefully for that particular reason. So now there are two types of errors broadly that can take place. One is slip and the other is a mistake. So, slip is something which is not done intentionally, and this can take place when the user, for example, is tired, is fatigued, or he has had a long day, or there can be some motor function which is not working properly. So, in that case, the slip may happen. So, for example, if we are trying to choose one of the elements from the menus, we click on the wrong one by mistake, because, or we are selecting a country from the drop down menu, for example, we go to I, and rather than selecting India, we click Iran, for example, because they're so close together, or the drop down menu is moving at a very fast rate, it's not stopping where we want it to stop. So that can be a simple slip. So mistakes are contrary to the slip, they are something that are conscious errors, and they are based on a mismatch between what is the user's intentions as to what is the system offering us. So when it doesn't align, then the mistakes may happen. So in order to ensure that we don't have any errors, or how do we take care of these errors? So one is to prevent the high cost errors first. So when we know our system very well, we know that what is the biggest error that the user may make. So our first priority should be to take care of those bigger errors, and then look at the smaller frustrations that can be caused by some smaller challenges that the user will face. Then at all costs, slips should be avoided. So our system should be capable enough that the user should not slip in the first place. And also to prevent mistakes by removing any kind of memory burdens, or also by reminding our user. So like I mentioned in the previous slide also, I'll give another example here of the mistake. Like for example, we are trying to write an email, and then sometimes the email, when we click the send button, the email gives us a timer. So we can see on our screen 10, 9, 8, 7. So the seconds are, so it shows the number of seconds before which, after which it will actually send the email. So if we have forgotten to say, for example, write thank you or some other thing, so then we can quickly press the undo, stop that clock, and then we can make the changes and then send the mail again. So these kinds of prompts when the system provides to the user, so these help us make sure that we do not make any mistake also, which the and the system is helping us take care of it. Then we have recognition rather than recall. So recognition is something that our visual perception helps us recognize. So we recognize, for example, our family members, we recognize our friends by their faces. When they're walking along a corridor far away, we also recognize them by the way they are walking or by some of the clothes that they usually wear. And recall is something where the cognition is involved, where we are trying to recall some information, and that happens when we meet some people we're meeting after a long time. So when we meet somebody taps on our shoulder in the marketplace, and we look at them and we are not able to place them. We're trying to recall where we have met this person, because maybe we have met them in some conference and now we are meeting them in the market and the context is not matching. So we are taking a few seconds to recall who this person is. So in both these cases, the simple example, but in the case of digital domain, also it becomes very important that we allow the user to recognize rather than recall some functions. So for example, if the user is working on a project and he has to submit it, and then the system asks that under which sustainability goals, so 17 sustainability goals, under which goal does your project fall, for example. So the user, if the system is not letting them recognize and only recall, then the user has to recall all the 17 goals and match their project with the goal and say, okay, it is for hunger or it is for health. But if the system also provides those 17 goals in front of the user, so the user can just choose and click those icons and select the goals that the project aligns with. So it makes it much easier, because the user may later on recall that they have forgotten to add an important goal that should have been added in the first place. So this is the way a system can help the user not make mistakes, and also the work is done effortlessly. So it should also always aim that the user is able to recognize rather than depend on their cognition or overuse the cognition and look at the recall function. So again, some ways in which designers can incorporate this is by allowing people to recognize information in the interface rather than forcing them to recall it and spend time recalling it, which will also lead to frustration. Another thing that can help is to offer help in the context. So rather than giving long tutorials or which they, pages that they have to memorize, maybe a help button or a question mark icon where the user can press and they are presented with the information. So that will also help them access information quickly and also reduce the information that the users have to remember. So we need to identify all of those places in our interface where the user can benefit from recognition. Of course, there may be some sections where recall will need to be applied, but wherever possible, we have to aim to move it to recognition rather than the recall function. Now, flexibility and efficiency of use is where we are aiming to make the system more flexible and also efficient to be used by the user. Now, there are several of these softwares, graphic softwares, even other text based softwares like Word and other things that we use. So, they have certain shortcuts that we, over time, when we use them quite often, or Excel or any other of these softwares, so over time we learn these shortcuts and we know that control S stands for saving, control C, control V, all of these basic functions we get used to through practice. For a new user, for somebody who is accessing this for the first time, it may be a little bit challenging. They may not be able to perform certain shortcuts. So the system should be designed in a way that it can speed up this interaction between the user and the system, so that it can cater to both the experienced and inexperienced. So when we have Control S as a shortcut, but we also have that icon of a floppy disk, which also means save. So for a fresh user or a new user, they may be more comfortable pressing that icon, and for a experienced user maybe, or just out of ease of convenience because they have a keyboard next to them, they may be more comfortable pressing Control S. So the system has to allow for these kind of flexibilities. So some of the ways in which we can achieve this flexibility and also add to the efficiency is by providing certain accelerators in the keyboard as shortcuts, and also touch gestures which we use with our touch. Then also to provide personalization by tailoring the content and functionality for individual users. So some of us in certain softwares, we like to have certain buttons on the right side, we like to have certain things on the left side of the screen, depending on how we prefer to use those. So it should allow the user to personalize their space as well. And also the customization. So again, that how the user is more comfortable, how they can use it to their benefit, what we are offering to them. Then aesthetics and minimalistic design deals with the overall look of our interface. So our interface, the primary function is for the user to perform the function that they want, and for that reason the interface should not be cluttered, and it should not be a place where the user is left confused. And sometimes this happens when we have a lot of irrelevant information on the screen which the user is very rarely using. So this just adds to the cognitive load of the user. So the minimalism in the UI can also help in keeping it clutter free and allowing the user to perform their functions. At the same time, it should not be very mundane, or it should not be just maybe too boring for the user to even want to use it. So for that reason, both these need to be balanced out. And in order to do this, the first thing is, for it to be minimalistic design, that we have to keep the content and the visual design which is focused on the essential contents that the user will interact with. The unnecessary elements that may distract the users should be controlled, or they should appear when they are required, not unnecessarily. And the prioritizing the content and features to support the primary goal of the users should always be the primary effort of the developer. Help users with errors. So now this deals with how do we help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from some of the errors that have occurred. So errors should be presented or displayed in simple language, and there should not be any codes. So we are very familiar with 404 code. So it is not very clear to the user that what does it mean. So it is to do with syntax, but the user doesn't know that what is it. But when we see 404, we know there is some error. But maybe the system should communicate to the user that what is the reason why this error has occurred, so that the user can now input the information in a correct fashion so that they don't see this message again. So to do this, there are several ways in which we can improve this communication of the error to the user. So by using bold text and color which tells them that the error has occurred, and tell the user in the language that they will understand that what has gone wrong, where has the mistake occurred, and also offer a solution to the user like a shortcut, so that the user is able to go back and correct it. So if there is some problem with my online shopping and I have entered some wrong card number, for example, then if the screen is showing me error and it's not telling me what is wrong with what I have done, I may never realize that I've entered one wrong digit. But the system, if it tells me, says, please check your card number, or it takes me back to where the mistake is, it highlights it with bold or some red color, then I will know that this is where I have made a mistake, and I will then be able to correct it. Otherwise, I will spend a lot of time just searching for where I might have gone wrong. The next is help and documentation. So it is always best and preferred that the system doesn't need any additional explanation. So, but it may be important in some cases to provide documentation to help users how to complete their tasks. So now sometimes on the screen we see a lot of these icons, and and then we see, when we hover over those icons, we see some more information about that icon. So without clicking on it, going to read it and ensuring whether it is useful for me or not, and then exiting out of it, rather than going through this whole process of exploring each and every one of these icons and then coming back to the one I actually want to access. Hovering over these icons can also tell me that whether out of these 10, I want to go to the number 7, for example. So this helps the user also reduce the number of steps and reach their goal faster. Now, some ways in which we can do it is that the whatever we are trying to find, the help document is easy to search for. So if my internet is not working, I don't know where it is gone wrong, so the troubleshoot should be easy for me to locate. Then whenever possible, present the documentation in context right at the moment that the user requires it. So accessibility becomes important here. Whenever the user requires it, it should be presentable to the user. And of course, the steps in the order in which the user has to access it, they should also be clearly mentioned. Now, coming to the principles of human computer interaction design, so there are several of these principles which are clubbed under these headings which we can see. So there are principles that pertain to attention, perception, principles dealing with memory, with mental model, with response selection principles, and interaction principles. So we will be taking a look at these principles a little bit in detail. So the first principle, which is the attention based principle, so here we can see that the first is anticipate the need. Now when people are using our digital system or our application, so they should not uh, spend a lot of time searching for the information, or they remember should not have to remember a lot of information when they are moving through the screens. So the whole process has to be intuitive, in the sense that system should know what the user is looking for, and they are not spending time searching for it. The necessary information and tools should be provided for the particular task and context. So again, the system has to understand the need of the user and present the required tool. So if the users are focused to look for information, their attention is taken away from goals and errors are likely to happen. And task analysis helps designers to anticipate user needs and direct the user's attention. So that is where the testing becomes very important, testing a prototype and the task analysis, the whole journey of the user, to find that what are the needs of the users, and also the attention of the user where it is required in a particular step, so that it can be guided to that particular step accordingly. The next principle in the attention principle is highlight changes. So the system should clearly identify changes in the system's status. We have already discussed that how the system should keep the user informed of the status at every given time, and it should be as quickly as possible and in real time. Now here we can see in that image that the cursor is flickering. Now if the user is, for example, if I am multitasking and I am writing something or entering some information, and then I have to go to some other page to just refer to some information or copy something and then bring it back, then if the cursor is not blinking in this place, then I will have to search where I had left off my last activity, and then that is where I will be inserting this new information I'm copying from the other page. So if the current system is giving me an indication with the help of the cursor in this particular case that this is where I left off, so then I will know that where I have to carry forward from, and I will not make any error in this particular case, and I will also know that in real time that the connecting the activity, continuing with it, will become very easy for me as a user. The next in the attention principle is limit interruptions and distractions. So many a times, because we have so many different applications that we are using, we are now in touch with so many different people and different activities, meetings, family, colleagues, acquaintances, friends. So a lot of times we are getting, a huge number of information, and our devices are just going going off with all this information that they are receiving. So now notifications are one of these elements that direct the attention of the user to tell them that some new information has come up. So they can alert the user. This can be very helpful because we may be waiting for some important information, like for example we get these OTPs on our phone to put in to make payments or other such purposes, or some important email that we are waiting for. But at the same time, when sometimes these alerts or these notifications are too many, and most of them can be which we are not really interested in, they can also lead us to make some kind of error. So increasing the complexity of the primary task and the interrupting task and the similarity of both can compromise the performance of the primary task. So sometimes the system is not able to distinguish between what is the primary task for the user and secondary, and in that whole process the user may get distracted and the primary task may go unnoticed, or they may make some error there. So in this particular case, the user should have the power and control that we have discussed, that how a user prefers to have power and control in this situation, so that any error is not made, and if it is made, then how they can undo that error. So here the control can be given to the user, wherein they may choose to respond to a particular interference or not, so that control they can have. And this can be done by several ways, like notifications we can turn off if we don't need them. So when we are working in our office, we can turn off some notifications from our friends maybe, or certain applications we don't want distraction from, some shopping websites or some other social media websites. So then in that situation we will only be communicating with our primary requirement, which is our work at this given time. And when we are out there enjoying the weekend, we may want to turn off our official notifications, for example. The next is minimize information access cost. So we know that when we have to retrieve any information, so it takes more physical and cognitive effort. So there is a need for several mouse clicks, for example, or to reach a certain, finish a certain stage, reach a certain point in our journey, or we have to remember the sequence of the activity. Now this can inhibit the retrieval of the information or the cognitive ability of the user. So the user may not be able to remember the information that needs to be entered in that location. So this needs to be taken care of, that how do we minimize this information that the user has to retrieve in order to move forward while interacting with the interface. Now coming to the perception principles. So here we have make system structure and affordances visible. So affordance is the message that we get from an object, that how the user should use it. So in the terms of physical products, I discussed this in my previous lecture as well, that affordance in terms of physical objects, if you take an example of a chair, that the chair affords one to sit in it, or a button has to be pressed, or it has to be turned, or it has to be pulled, or it has to be pushed. So the design of the button or the handle of the door or any other item tells us how we have to manipulate it in order to use it, to open the door, to open the drawer, or to turn the radio on, for example. So in the digital domain also, it becomes very important that the our GUI, our graphical user interface, is also communicating effectively with the user. So the user is able to know that this button will be activated if I click on it or if I drag it. So these icons and buttons in the GUI, they have to be designed in order for the user to be able to understand how these will functions and how the actions will take place. So today we will stop here, and in the next lecture we will continue with the rest of the functions. So I'll see you in the next class. Thank you.